All right, joining us now, a Republican candidate for U.S. Senate in order to be the nominee in 2020 to go against Mark Warner. Tom Speciale will have to win a Republican Senate primary that's already been set, and that will be in, when will that be? That'll be in June of 2020, and he's joining us now. Tom, great to have you with us, man.
Thanks for having me on, John. I appreciate it.
You got it, Tom. All right, Tom, let's give us the lay of the land. I've kind of lost track of the other candidates that are in this thing. I know we're here to talk about you. We're going to get to that. I've had a couple times on our show Daniel Gade. Are there any other announced candidates now that Taylor, for all intents and purposes, has abandoned his Senate race to go back in the 2nd District?
Well, I've been saying all along that people should, be paying attention to the fact that so many veterans were running for this seat. I mean, the veterans really all across the country are running for political office because of the state of our country. There's myself, Daniel Gade, Elisa Baldwin, Gary Adkins, an Air Force. He's an Air Force retiree. And then there's a guy named Omari, and then there's another guy who's filed, but I can't remember his name. I haven't seen anything from him. But and I love Elisa Baldwin. I think, it's another example, because I call her a veteran too, because she's like on the front lines in our schools trying to, keep our values alive in our children's minds. And, I was a kindergarten teacher for one day, and I don't want that job. It's a very, very tough job.
Tom, tell us about your background and yourself. Why don't you start there?
Okay. So I grew up in Illinois, part of Flyover America. Grew up poor. And, we refused to take handouts. My dad had a saying, to work 1 square foot at a time. And so in 2001, I had graduated from college. I'd already been in the military before then. I went in 1987. I'd served some time on active duty and in the reserves. I graduated from college. I moved to Washington, D.C., to Alexandria, Virginia, actually, in 2001. And I was just a few blocks away from the Pentagon when the Pentagon got hit on September. And on the 12th, I went to New York. I went to Ground Zero. On the 12th of September, I walked the entire debris field the day after. And all this is in my autobiography. As part of my campaign, I've been secretly sort of getting ready for the last 3 years. And as part of my campaign, I wrote my autobiography. It's available on Amazon. It's called Faith, Family, and Fortitude. And I'm giving half of the proceeds to charity, to cancer research and mental health services for depression and suicide until I win. And then once I win, I'm going to give the remaining proceeds away to wounded warriors and homeless vets. Mm-hmm. So all my autobiography is available online. I call it my book of scars and skeletons because it's really a tell-all book, so people really know who I am and why I'm running. Why I'm running, I guess. I'm fed up. I'm angry. I can't take any more of these socialists, that are trying to dismantle the American dream. I mean, every single thing they stand for, is about taking away our rights, and essentially it's a big power grab. And the American people are starting to wake up. I think, Trump, I was laughing. I was listening to what you were talking about with the impeachment and the rally and, the Democrats being worried about the election in 2020. They should be worried. They should be worried because I think Trump it's just something that no one could have anticipated. And that's, of course, why they ran their illegal counterintelligence investigation. It's why they're trying to impeach him, because they're doing everything they can to try and stop him from revitalizing the American dream. I mean, what was his motto? Make America great again. Mm-hmm. At a time when our country was beginning to fray, and he brought us back together, I think, in a way that no one could have anticipated. So, that's me, I guess, in a nutshell, and sort of what I believe.
All right, so let me ask you this, Tom. What is it that differentiates you from some of the other candidates? So, as Republicans are going to the polls and evaluating who they should vote for in the June primary, why should they consider voting for you over some of the other candidates? All of you are unknown, right? I mean, nobody's heard of any of you guys. With Taylor out, this thing is now wide open, right? You'd probably say because of the money raised, maybe Gade would be a slight favorite, but this whole thing is wide open. Why should people vote for you?
I first of all, I want to say I'm not running against any of these guys. I think
yeah. I get all that, right? Everybody says that, and I get it. But you've got a competitive primary with 5 people with no name ID that no one's heard of, right? No one's. Right. I mean, the other day I cover this, right? Every day, 5 days a week, 4 hours a day. I couldn't remember Daniel Gade's name, right? So there's just no name ID. Right, everybody's starting even outside of. I think Gade raised a couple $100,000. Good for him. So he's got a little bit of an edge. So I know you're not running against anybody, but you're in a competitive primary with 5 or 6 other people. No one with any name ID. Why should Tom Speciale stand out? What's different?
Okay. So first of all, I'm the guy who can get us into Nova. Okay, my personal story. Of growing up poor and struggling for everything I have gets us into the urban communities in Virginia that I think the other candidates can't necessarily do. And in addition to that, something I've really been thinking about is for the last 10 years I've been working in the intelligence community. So I don't have any spin-up time. I've written the talking points for government officials. I've literally participated in the analysis, the war planning, the strategizing, writing the intelligence strategies, I've actually got zero spin-up time. I'm ready right now to take on the seat, to sit in the seat and start making constructive decisions and helping lead our country forward. I've been getting ready for about 3 years. This is what makes me different. I've been in the IC for the last 10 years. I've worked at every level of the intelligence community, from the tactical level all the way up to the policy and the governance level. I think I'm a unity candidate. I'm a guy who can unite both the Trump tribe and the old guard Republicans. I can do that because I grew up believing in the old guard ideology, but I'm young enough to also be part of the Trump tribe. Look, I say this, I don't own any fancy suits. I didn't go to any fancy schools. It's just been a lot of hard work and faith and God. I earned every dollar I've ever had. I've earned every promotion. I've taken my licks. I've been a private. I've been a sergeant, and now I'm a chief warrant officer in the United States Army, which the veterans out there will know that as a warrant officer, it's my job to get stuff done. And I think that too is going to resonate with the Trump tribe in ways that are going to carry us to victory. As part of getting ready for the last 3 years, really the last 10 years, including the IC time, I know our enemies, both foreign and domestic. Okay, I know them from the inside. That's all I've done for the last 10 years is look at our foreign enemies, and for the last 3 years, I've been looking at our domestic enemies, the enemies to our American values, the enemies of the American dream. And so I'm ready to have that conversation, and I have been getting ready for the last 3 years for this particular election.
All right, I got a text question here from Jeremy in Chesapeake. He says, with all the abuses of the FBI and other intelligence apparatus and the FISA debacle lying on that, why should I vote for you? Are you not part of that?
That's a great question and something I've been hoping somebody would ask me. The vast majority of the people in the intelligence community who I have worked alongside of and in the military that then ultimately get into the intelligence community and into the FBI, the vast majority of these people are absolutely uncompromising patriots, and they are furious about what has happened. I knew when Donald Trump said in 2016, he says, I'm being spied upon. Because of what I do in the intelligence community, not that I had any inside information to it, I wasn't part of that in any way, but I knew immediately that was a counterintelligence investigation because they would be looking to try and defend him Under normal circumstances, the IC would be trying to defend him against threats from foreign adversaries. But I could have never imagined, ever fathomed, that the FBI would lie, would first of all falsify CIA information to the FISA court to get a counterintelligence investigation, a complete violation of the civil liberties of every member of the Trump campaign team, because they knew who else was going to be on Carter Page's phone. So they knew they were going to be listening to the entire campaign. Don't dismiss that for a second, that they knew they were going to be picking up everybody else. But I believe there's a line in Comey's book where he talks about Loretta Lynch, and he says Loretta Lynch did something. I can't tell you what it is, he says, because it's classified. But whatever she did, it would shed doubt on the efficacy of how the FBI handled the investigation. I believe Comey knew that Loretta Lynch, and my suspicion is she went around him and went directly to the investigative team. This is just a suspicion. But she did something that compromised the investigation, and here's why they thought they could get away with it. They thought they could do this because no one believed Donald Trump was going to win. So normally a counterintelligence investigation is never revealed to the public. But once he won, that's why they all ran to their computers and started writing books to cover their butts, because they knew that this was going to come out when he won. You know, look, we've been through now. The Democrats hate Trump so bad. They've taken us through the whole collusion argument. They said he's unfit. They did the Mueller investigation. They wrote the Mueller report, didn't find anything. Then they've got these leakers, Zindman, on phone calls with him with a plan to look for anything they could to impeach him. And that's what brings us all the way to today. This was a plan to look for something inside the campaign, something that Trump did, that they could do this impeachment campaign against him. And all this does, John, is serve to divide our country, which was the number one goal of the Russians in 2014. And remember, people remember now that in the Mueller report, that the Russians started their campaign in 2014 when they sent Russians to travel across America to take photos everywhere and build their Facebook profiles and all that stuff. This thing that the Democrats are doing is literally wittingly serving the Russians' goal of sowing chaos in our country. I believe that this whole thing is it's tearing our country apart, okay? And they are doing it wittingly at this point, serving the Russians' chief objective, which was to sow chaos in our country.
So your contention is that the Carter Page spying fiasco, even though they were spying on him, he was a conduit to spy on the entire campaign. Had Hillary won, none of this would have come out.
Correct. They're absolutely correct, John, because they knew that Carter Page was on the campaign team. So they knew when they FISA warranted him that they would pick up everything else. Here's another thing I want to be really clear about. You're not going to hear this kind of granularity about how this stuff works, but the bottom line is the CIA and the DOD have a different form of standard for counterintelligence, okay? Because they don't do domestic counterintelligence investigations. When that comes up, they turn it over to the FBI. Well, the FBI has a different mandate. The FBI's goal is to prosecute people. So a counterintelligence investigation run by the FBI is done with the purpose of trying to reveal Americans that are spying for foreign countries. They were hoping that they would find evidence that someone in the Trump campaign, okay, would be able to be prosecuted for this. It was a counterintelligence investigation with a goal of prosecuting someone. The CIA and the DOD, when they conduct a counterintelligence investigation, a lot of times, FBI does this too, but just not like what they did with Carter Page, where they're looking for foreign threats against us, but they may never prosecute anybody. They may never arrest anybody. They may watch that counterintelligence activity go on for years, decades, watching it so that they can sort of manage the damage that's being done, et cetera. So this is something that, generally speaking, the American people don't understand the difference between those two. But that's why you hear the bar is very low to open a counterintelligence investigation, because 99 times out of 100, it turns out to be nothing, and they just close the investigation. And guess what? The American citizen never even knows that it happened. So they believed that Trump was going to lose, and that they would either find evidence against him and be able to prosecute somebody, not against him personally maybe, but against somebody in his campaign, that they would be able to prosecute them, or nothing would happen and they would just get all the inside information. The other point of this, I think, is very, very interesting, and most people aren't going to have caught this. But the FBI, someone on the FBI team that knew they got the approval for the FISA, must have leaked that to the Democrats, because that's what they thought was their evidence of Trump's collusion with Russia. They kept going on and on about, we have evidence.
Right.
They thought because the FBI got the FISA, okay, there was evidence of Trump collusion.
They assumed there had to be evidence in the FISA report, or the judges wouldn't assign the warrant.
Correct.
So what they miscalculated is the falsification of the FISA warrant, which we talked about on the show for months, and that I said, as our listeners are going to recall, at some point, some FISA judge is going to come out and say they got scammed and be pissed, and that's exactly what happened the other day. And it's, by the way, forget all Carter Page and everything else, Tom. It's why I was against the Patriot Act, number one, son of Patriot Act, the FISA court, the whole setup, and we predicted 10 years ago on this show, when this went down, that this eventually would be the result of the Patriot Act. FISA courts, abuse, falsification, lying for power, getting the phone records of U.S. citizens, spying on everybody. We predicted all this would happen, and it did. I got to roll. Tom, what's your website, Tom?
It's Thomas Speciale, and I'll spell it because my last name can throw people off. It's Thomas, common spelling, SPECIALE.com. And, look, John, last thing I'll say is what we need a grassroots movement. I'm asking people to get into the fight by volunteering, and I'm asking people to, as George Washington said in Valley Forge, send ammunition. We can't beat these Democrats back without money. Mark Warner has a $200 million war chest of his own personal money, and these people are so hungry for power that they're willing to spend money. So I'm asking every single Virginian to give $17.76 to my campaign, and I guarantee you I will rebuild faith in your government. I will spend every minute of my day rebuilding faith in our government.
All right, Tom, I got to roll. Go to thomasspeciale.com. Tom, we'll have you back to continue this discussion. Thank you. I really appreciate it. John Fredericks Radio Network.